For second semester, Faculty of Medicine, Basic Medical Sciences, Anatomy, Introduction to Anatomy. Anatomy is a branch of biology that studies the structure of the human body, which includes the recognition and understanding of the shape, location, and relationships between body organs, and how these structures support the overall function of the body. Anatomy is divided into two main categories. 1. Macroscopic anatomy, or gross anatomy, studying body structures that can be seen with the naked eye. 2. Microscopic anatomy, studying body structures that can only be seen with a microscope, such as tissues and cells. Anatomy is also closely related to physiology, which studies the function of body organs. Understanding anatomy is very important because body structures greatly affect the function of the body itself. Major topics of macroscopic anatomy. 1. Head and neck. The anatomy of the head and neck involves various structures that support sensory functions, breathing, eating, and speaking. Skull. The skull protects the brain and important sensory organs such as the eyes, ears, and nose. It consists of two main parts. Cranium protects the brain. Mandible, lower jaw, connects to the cranium and is important for eating and speaking. Cranial nerves. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves that originate from the brain and are responsible for motor and sensory functions, such as vision, optic nerve, hearing, vestibulocochlear nerve, and control of facial muscles, facial nerve. Facial muscles. The muscles of the face are involved in facial expressions and mouth movements. For example, the orbicularis oculi muscle controls the eyelids, and the masseter muscle functions in chewing. 2. Thorax, chest. The thorax includes vital structures involved in breathing and blood circulation. Heart. The heart is located in the center of the chest, tilted slightly to the left. It consists of 4 chambers, 2 atria and 2 ventricles, which pump blood throughout the body through blood vessels. Lungs. The lungs are the main organs in the respiratory system responsible for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. The right lung has 3 lobes, while the left lung has 2 lobes. Major blood vessels. Aorta. The main blood vessel that carries oxygen-rich blood from the heart to the rest of the body. Vena cava, carries blood back to the heart from the lower, inferior vena cava, and upper, superior vena cava, parts of the body. Pulmonary veins, transport blood between the heart and lungs for gas exchange. 3. Abdomen. The abdomen is the area of the body that contains the organs involved in digestion, metabolism, and excretion. Stomach. The stomach is a digestive organ that breaks down food with the help of stomach acid and enzymes, and turns it into chyme, a liquid mixture. Liver. The liver functions to produce bile, which aids in the digestion of fats, detoxify the blood, and store glycogen. Pancreas. The pancreas functions in regulating blood sugar through the production of insulin and glucagon, and produces digestive enzymes that are important for the breakdown of nutrients in the small intestine. Small intestine. The small intestine consists of 3 parts: the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Most of the digestion and absorption of nutrients occurs here. Kidneys. The kidneys function in filtering blood, regulating fluid and electrolyte balance, and excreting waste products through urine. 4. Extremities, arms and legs. The extremities involve the body structures involved in movement and mobility. Bones of the extremities, arms, consists of the humerus, upper arm bone, radius and ulna, lower arm bones. Also includes the bones of the hand, including the finger bones. Legs, consists of the femur, thigh bone, tibia and fibula, lower leg bones. There are also bones in the feet and toes. Muscles of the extremities, arms. Major muscles include the biceps and triceps, which are involved in flexion and extension of the elbow. Legs. Major muscles such as the quadriceps and hamstrings that are involved in knee and hip movements. Joints of the extremities. Joints of the extremities allow for body movement, such as the elbow, knee, and wrist joints. Anatomy emphasis. Interrelationships between organs. One of the main concepts in anatomy is how the body's organs are connected and work together to maintain homeostasis. Clinical understanding. Each topic of anatomy is essential for clinical understanding, such as in surgery or the diagnosis of disease, where knowing the position of organs and body structures is crucial. Anatomy learning methods. Anatomy learning usually involves dissection, practicum, in many medical universities. Students dissect human bodies or cadavers to understand anatomy directly. Picture study. Use of diagrams and pictures of the human body to understand the position and relationship between organs. Introduction to structure. Learning about how body structures relate to their functions, and their effects on pathology or disease. Conclusion. The anatomy material in Semester 2 provides an important basic understanding of the structure of the human body. The focus on macroscopic anatomy greatly helps medical students understand the location, shape, and relationship between body organs, which will be used for diagnosis, treatment, and understanding of diseases in subsequent semesters. 2. Physiology. Introduction to physiology. Physiology is a branch of biology that studies the function of the human body. Unlike anatomy, which focuses on structure, physiology focuses on how organs, tissues, and cells of the body work together to maintain the survival and balance of the body. Physiology is very important because it provides an understanding of how the body responds to various internal and external stimuli, as well as how the body's organs function to maintain homeostasis. Physiology is divided into two main categories. 1. Cellular physiology. Understanding how the body's cells function and interact with each other. 2. Body system physiology. Discussing the function of larger body systems, such as the cardiovascular, respiratory, digestive, and other systems. Main topics of physiology. 1. Cellular function. Cells are the smallest structural and functional units in the human body. Cellular physiology discusses how cells work to regulate body activities, including energy metabolism and substance transport. Transport of substances through membranes. The cell membrane functions to regulate the flow of substances into and out of the cell. There are several mechanisms for transporting substances through the cell membrane. Osmosis. The movement of water through a semi-permeable membrane from an area of high water concentration to an area of low water concentration. Diffusion. The movement of substances from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration, such as oxygen entering the cell and carbon dioxide leaving the cell. Active transport. The process of transporting substances against a concentration gradient, requiring energy, ATP, for this process. Example: sodium-potassium pump, Na plus K plus pump. Energy metabolism process. Body cells require energy to perform various functions. The main processes for producing energy are glycolysis, the breakdown of glucose into pyruvic acid to produce ATP. Takes place in the cytoplasm. Citric acid cycle, Krebs, chemical reactions that occur in the mitochondria that produce more ATP and byproducts such as CO2 and H2O. Electron transport chain. The final stage of energy production occurs in the mitochondria, where ATP is produced through the process of oxidative phosphorylation. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the main energy molecule used by cells for various activities. 2. Functions of body systems. Each body system works to maintain the body's balance and allow the body to function properly. Here is a further explanation of the functions of the main body systems. Cardiovascular system, heart and blood vessels, heart. The function of the heart is to pump blood throughout the body, delivering oxygen and nutrients to the body's cells and returning metabolic byproducts, such as carbon dioxide, to the excretory organs. Blood vessels. Blood vessels carry blood pumped by the heart throughout the body. There are 3 types of blood vessels: arteries, carrying blood away from the heart, veins, carrying blood back to the heart, and capillaries, where oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged. Blood circulation consists of 2 types of circulation: namely pulmonary circulation. Blood flows to the lungs for gas exchange, and systemic circulation. Blood flows throughout the body. Respiratory system, breathing, lungs. The main function of the lungs is gas exchange, namely flowing oxygen into the blood and removing carbon dioxide from the blood into the air. Gas exchange. Oxygen enters the alveoli, air sacs in the lungs, and passes through the alveolar walls to enter the blood. Conversely, carbon dioxide from the blood exits into the alveoli to be expelled through respiration. Respiratory regulation. The brain controls respiration by monitoring the level of carbon dioxide in the blood. If carbon dioxide levels increase, the nervous system sends signals to increase the respiratory rate. Digestive system, food digestion and nutrient absorption, mouth and digestive tract. Food is first digested in the mouth through the process of chewing and mixing with saliva, which contains the enzyme amylase to break down carbohydrates. Stomach and intestines. The stomach functions to further digest food with the help of stomach acid and enzymes. The small intestine is the main site for the absorption of nutrients, such as glucose, amino acids, and fatty acids. Nutrient absorption. Nutrients digested in the small intestine are absorbed by the intestinal walls into the bloodstream to be distributed throughout the body. Nervous system, nerve impulses, reflexes, and the autonomic nervous system, nerve impulses. The nervous system sends electrical impulses that carry information between parts of the body, including the brain, spinal cord, and other organs. This process involves neurons communicating with each other. Reflexes are the body's automatic response to a stimulus, such as the knee reflex that occurs when a tendon in the knee is hit. Autonomic nervous system regulates unconscious body functions, such as heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing. This system is divided into two parts: the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest response. Endocrine system, hormone and its role in body regulation. Hormones. Hormones are chemicals produced by the endocrine glands and function to regulate various body functions, including metabolism, growth, and reproduction. Endocrine glands includes the pituitary, thyroid, adrenal, pancreas, and gonads. Each gland produces hormones that regulate specific body processes. For example, insulin from the pancreas regulates blood sugar levels, and adrenaline from the adrenal glands regulates stress responses. 3. Homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's mechanism for maintaining internal balance despite changes in the external environment. This process ensures that the body continues to function within an optimal range of conditions. Body temperature regulation. The human body has an ideal temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius. If the body temperature is too high or too low, the body will make physiological changes, such as sweating or shivering, to return it to normal. Blood pH regulation. The body also maintains the balance of blood pH to remain within the range of 7.35 to 7.45. The body's buffer system helps stabilize blood pH despite changes. Regulation of fluid and electrolyte balance. The kidneys play an important role in regulating the amount of fluid and electrolytes in the body, such as sodium, potassium, and calcium. Conclusion. Physiology provides a deep understanding of how the human body functions, from the cellular level to the larger body systems. A good understanding of these body functions is essential for medical students, as it will provide the basis for diagnosing and treating diseases later in life. Learning about homeostasis. The regulation of various body systems, and the interactions between body systems is key to understanding how the body maintains health and balance under various conditions. 3. Biochemistry. Introduction to biochemistry. Biochemistry is a branch of science that studies the chemical reactions that occur in the human body, especially at the molecular level. Biochemistry bridges the gap between biology and chemistry by examining how small molecules such as amino acids, fatty acids, glucose, and nucleic acids interact and play a role in life processes. In the context of medicine, biochemistry is essential for understanding how the body regulates metabolism, cellular processes, and how metabolic imbalances can lead to disease. Key topics in biochemistry. 1. Biomolecules. Biomolecules are molecules found in the body and involved in various important functions. The three main groups of biomolecules that will be discussed are carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the body's primary source of energy found in the form of glucose, fructose, and galactose. They play a role in providing energy through metabolic processes. Carbohydrates are also important for body structures, such as in plant cell walls, which is cellulose. Carbohydrate structure. Carbohydrates are divided into three main categories. Monosaccharides, example, glucose, disaccharides, example, sucrose, and polysaccharides, example, glycogen and starch. Monosaccharides are the basic units of carbohydrates that can form disaccharides and polysaccharides through glycosidic bonds. Carbohydrate function. Carbohydrates primarily function as the main source of energy for the body. Glucose, which is produced from the digestion of carbohydrates, is the source of energy used by body cells. In addition, carbohydrates are also used to form glycogen, energy storage in the liver and muscles, and hyaluronic acid, a component of connective tissue structure. Carbohydrate metabolism, glycolysis, the process that converts glucose into pyruvic acid to produce ATP, energy. Gluconeogenesis, the process of forming glucose from non-carbohydrate compounds, such as amino acids and glycerol, which occurs in the liver and kidneys. Proteins. Proteins are very important biomolecules in the human body because they function as enzymes, cell structures, antibodies, and many other biological functions. Protein structure. Proteins are composed of long chains of amino acids folded into a complex three-dimensional structure. There are 4 levels of protein structure: primary structure, sequence of amino acids; secondary structure, alpha helix or beta pleated sheet; tertiary structure, three-dimensional folding; and quaternary structure, joining of multiple polypeptide chains. Protein synthesis. Protein synthesis occurs in 2 main stages: transcription, reading of DNA to produce mRNA, and translation. mRNA is translated into a sequence of amino acids to form proteins. Enzyme function. Enzymes are proteins that function as biological catalysts that speed up chemical reactions in the body. They work by binding to substrates and lowering the activation energy required for chemical reactions. Lipids. Lipids are biomolecules composed of fatty acids and alcohols. They serve as energy reserves, components of cell membranes, and regulatory molecules, e.g. steroid hormones. Fat metabolism. Fats are stored in the form of triglycerides and can be converted to fatty acids and glycerol through the process of lipolysis. Fatty acids are then used to produce energy through beta oxidation. Role of reserve energy. Fats are a more efficient form of energy reserve than carbohydrates because they provide more ATP per molecule processed. This is especially important for long-term energy provision during fasting or when the body needs additional energy. 2. Energy metabolism. Energy metabolism includes all processes that convert food substances into energy that can be used by the body. These processes are essential for maintaining body function and survival. Krebs cycle, citric acid cycle. The Krebs cycle is a series of chemical reactions that occur in the mitochondria of cells that convert pyruvic acid to carbon dioxide, producing energy that is stored in the form of NADH, FADH2, and GTP, ATP. These products are then used in subsequent processes to produce more ATP. Oxidative phosphorylation. Oxidative phosphorylation is the final stage in ATP production that occurs in the mitochondria. In this process, the NADH and FADH2 produced in the Krebs cycle are used to produce ATP via the electron transport chain, with oxygen as the final electron acceptor in producing water. Glucose and lipid metabolism pathways. Glucose. Glucose is the body's primary source of energy. Once absorbed, glucose can be used directly in glycolysis to produce ATP or stored as glycogen in the liver and muscles. When the body is low on glucose, the process of gluconeogenesis is activated to produce glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. Lipids, fats, once broken down into fatty acids and glycerol, can be used to produce ATP through beta oxidation. The oxidized fatty acids enter the Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation to produce ATP. 3. Enzymology. Enzymology is the study of how enzymes work and the factors that influence their activity. Enzymes are essential in biochemistry because they speed up chemical reactions that are vital to life. How enzymes work. Enzymes function by lowering the activation energy required to initiate a chemical reaction. Enzymes have an active site where the substrate binds, and the enzyme forms an enzyme-substrate complex. This process allows chemical reactions to occur more quickly and more efficiently. Factors affecting enzyme activity. Temperature. High temperatures can increase the rate of enzyme reactions, but too high temperatures can damage the enzyme structure, denaturation. pH. Each enzyme has an optimal pH at which it works most effectively. Changes in pH can affect the structure of the enzyme and the function of its active site. Substrate and enzyme concentration. The rate of enzyme reactions increases as the substrate concentration increases, but only up to the saturation point where all the enzyme's active sites are filled. Likewise, increasing the enzyme concentration can speed up the reaction if there is enough substrate. Inhibitor molecules can bind to enzymes and reduce their activity. Inhibitors can be reversible or irreversible, depending on how the molecule binds to the enzyme. Conclusion. Biochemistry is an important foundation in medical science because it provides a deeper understanding of the chemical reactions that occur in the human body. By understanding energy metabolism, the function of biomolecules, and the mechanisms of enzymes, medical students can more easily understand the basic biological processes that occur in the body. It also provides important insight to diagnose and treat various diseases related to metabolic disorders or biomolecular functions. IV. Microbiology and parasitology. Introduction to Microbiology and Parasitology. Microbiology and parasitology are branches of science that study microorganisms, such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites that can cause disease in humans, and how they interact with the human body. This knowledge is very important for medical students because infections and parasitic diseases are major causes of morbidity and mortality worldwide. Understanding the structure, life cycle, and mechanisms of pathogenicity of microorganisms and how the body responds to infection is essential for diagnosing and treating diseases caused by microorganisms and parasites. Main topics in microbiology and parasitology. 1. Basic microbiology. Microbiology studies the various microorganisms that can infect the human body, as well as how these microorganisms reproduce and cause disease. Structure and classification of microbes. Bacteria. Bacteria are single-celled microorganisms that have various shapes, such as cocci, spherical, bacilli, rods, and spirals. Bacteria can be divided into two main groups based on the type of their cell wall: gram-positive bacteria that have a thick peptidoglycan layer in their cell wall that will absorb crystal violet dye in the gram stain. Gram-negative bacteria with thinner cell walls and have an outer membrane containing lipopolysaccharide, LPS, which does not absorb the gram stain in the same way. Viruses. Viruses are microorganisms that cannot reproduce without infecting a host cell. Viruses consist of genetic material, DNA or RNA, protected by a protein coat, and some viruses also have a lipid coat. Viruses can infect human body cells and use cellular machinery to reproduce themselves. Fungi. Fungi are eukaryotic organisms that can be unicellular, such as yeast, or multicellular, such as molds. Fungi can live in moist environments and infect the human body, especially those with weakened immune systems. Some fungi have the potential to cause more serious skin, lung, or systemic infections. Infection process and pathogenesis. Infection occurs when microorganisms enter the body and begin to multiply, often causing tissue damage or impaired body function. Microbes can enter the body through a variety of routes, such as the respiratory tract, digestive tract, or a break in the skin. Pathogenesis. Pathogenesis is the process by which microbes cause disease. Some steps in pathogenesis include adhesion. Microbes attach to host cells through structures such as pili or surface proteins. Invasion. Microbes enter body tissues and begin colonization. Tissue damage. Microbes may secrete enzymes or toxins that damage body cells and cause inflammation. Immune evasion. Some microbes have mechanisms to avoid detection or destruction by the immune system. 2. Basic parasitology. Parasitology is the branch of science that studies parasites. Organisms that live and reproduce at the expense of their hosts, often causing disease. Disease-causing parasites, protozoa. Protozoa are unicellular organisms that can infect the human body and cause disease. Examples of pathogenic protozoa are Plasmodium, which causes malaria, Entamoeba histolytica, which causes amoebic dysentery, and Giardia lamblia, which causes diarrhea. Worms, helminths. Worms are multicellular parasites that can live in the human body, such as tapeworms, hookworms, and roundworms. Worm infections can cause digestive disorders, anemia, and damage to other organs. Arthropods. Arthropods are a group of animals with segmented bodies and branched legs, including ticks, mosquitoes, and mites. Some arthropods act as vectors for parasites or microorganisms, such as mosquitoes that transmit Plasmodium, which causes malaria. Parasite life cycle and transmission mechanisms. Parasite life cycle. Most parasites have complex life cycles, including larval and adult stages, and often involve more than one host. For example, Plasmodium requires a mosquito as a vector and a human as a primary host to develop its life cycle. Parasite transmission mechanisms. Parasites can be transmitted in a variety of ways. Direct contact, as in flea or roundworm infections. Vectors, carrier animals, for example, mosquitoes that carry Plasmodium, which causes malaria. Feces or dirty water. Some parasites, such as Giardia, can be transmitted through contaminated water or food. 3. Basic immunology. Immunology is the study of the human body's immune system, which functions to fight infections caused by microorganisms and parasites. The immune system consists of various components that work together to detect and eliminate pathogens. Components of the immune system: immune cells, such as T cells, B cells, macrophages, and dendritic cells, which play a role in detecting and destroying pathogens. Antibodies, protein molecules produced by B cells to recognize and neutralize pathogens. Complement system, a process involving a series of proteins to help destroy microbes and strengthen the immune response. Body's immune response, innate immunity. The first immune response that occurs immediately after infection. It involves physical barriers, skin and mucosa, phagocytosis, destruction of microbes by phagocytic cells. And the complement system, adaptive immunity. A more specific immune response, involving recognition of pathogens by T cells and production of antibodies by B cells. Adaptive immunity also involves the formation of immunological memory that allows the body to respond more quickly if exposed to the same pathogen in the future. Conclusion: microbiology and parasitology provide a very important foundation for understanding infectious diseases caused by microorganisms and parasites. Understanding the structure of microbes, mechanisms of infection, parasite life cycles, and how the body responds to infections through the immune system is fundamental knowledge needed by medical students. With this knowledge, medical students can understand how to identify, diagnose, and treat various infectious diseases that can affect the human body. Versus basic pathology. Introduction to pathology. Pathology is a branch of medicine that studies changes in the structure and function of the body caused by disease. This science is essential to understanding how disease affects the human body at the cellular and tissue levels. By understanding basic pathology, medical students can identify and diagnose various diseases and understand the processes that occur in the body during the course of the disease. Main topics of basic pathology. 1. Cell and tissue injury. Cell injury occurs when cells are unable to function normally due to various factors that can cause damage or death. These processes can be divided into two main types: apoptosis and necrosis. Apoptosis is the process of programmed or controlled cell death, which occurs as part of the body's normal control of development and homeostasis. In apoptosis, cells undergo organized structural changes, such as DNA fragmentation and changes in cell shape, but do not cause inflammation. This process is important for eliminating damaged or harmful cells without causing damage to surrounding tissues. Necrosis. Necrosis is uncontrolled cell death, often caused by severe physical or chemical damage, such as trauma, lack of oxygen, or infection. In necrosis, cells swell, lyse, rupture of the cell membrane, and release cell contents into the surrounding tissue, often triggering inflammation. 2. Inflammation and healing. Inflammation is the body's response to injury or infection, which aims to eliminate the cause of the injury, clear dead cells, and repair damaged tissue. Inflammation can be acute or chronic. Acute inflammation. Acute inflammation is a rapid response to infection or injury that occurs over a short period of time. This process involves the release of chemical mediators, such as histamine, prostaglandins, dilation of blood vessels, and infiltration of immune cells, especially neutrophils, into the injured area. Acute inflammation is usually accompanied by classic signs such as redness, heat, swelling, and pain. Chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation occurs when the inflammatory response cannot resolve the cause of the infection or injury, resulting in long-term inflammation. Chronic inflammation usually involves other immune cells such as lymphocytes, macrophages, and plasma cells, and can cause permanent tissue damage and organ dysfunction. Tissue healing. Wound healing occurs through two main mechanisms: regeneration, healing by the growth of new cells, or fibrosis, healing by the formation of scar tissue. In tissues that cannot regenerate, the body will replace them with coarser connective tissue, often resulting in loss of tissue function. 3. Circulatory disorders. Circulatory disorders relate to problems with blood flow and oxygenation of body tissues. Some common disorders that can occur in circulation include edema. Edema is the accumulation of fluid in the extracellular space, which can occur throughout the body or be limited to one area, such as the legs or lungs. Edema often occurs due to increased permeability of blood vessels, decreased colloid pressure of the blood, or obstruction of lymphatic flow. Thrombosis. Thrombosis is the formation of a blood clot, thrombus, within a blood vessel that can block blood flow. Thrombosis can occur in arteries or veins, and if the thrombus breaks off or moves, it can cause an embolism. Embolism. An embolism is a blockage of a blood vessel caused by a foreign particle traveling through the bloodstream, such as a dislodged thrombus, fat, air, or even cancer cells. An embolism can block blood flow and cause organ damage, such as a stroke or pulmonary embolism. 4. Degenerative diseases. Degenerative diseases are conditions in which there is damage or decline in the function of organs or body tissues that develop gradually. Some common degenerative diseases are atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is the hardening and narrowing of the arteries due to the accumulation of fat, cholesterol, and other materials in the walls of the blood vessels. This process leads to decreased blood flow to vital organs, increasing the risk of coronary heart disease, stroke, and heart attack. Cirrhosis of the liver. Cirrhosis of the liver is a condition in which healthy liver tissue is replaced by scar tissue, fibrosis, which interferes with liver function. The main causes of cirrhosis include hepatitis virus infection, excessive alcohol consumption, and non-alcoholic liver disease. Cirrhosis can lead to liver failure and other serious complications. 5. Tumor basics. A tumor is a mass of tissue that forms due to uncontrolled cell growth. Tumors can be divided into two main categories, benign and malignant. Benign tumors. A benign tumor is a growth of cells that is not invasive and does not spread to other parts of the body. Although they can grow large and affect nearby organs, benign tumors are generally not life-threatening and can be surgically removed. Malignant tumors, cancer. A malignant tumor is a growth of cells that is invasive and can spread, metastasize, to other parts of the body via the blood or lymphatic system. Cancer can originate from almost any type of cell in the body and requires further medical treatment such as chemotherapy, radiation therapy, or surgery. Conclusion. Basic pathology provides an understanding of the changes that occur at the cellular and tissue levels due to disease. By studying the processes of cell injury, inflammation, circulatory disorders, degenerative diseases, and tumors, medical students can understand the basic mechanisms behind the various clinical conditions they encounter. This knowledge is the basis for diagnosing and treating patients with diseases that affect the organs and systems of the human body. V. Basic pharmacology. Introduction to pharmacology, namely, pharmacology is the science that studies drugs and their effects on the human body. This science is very important for medical students because drugs are used for the prevention, treatment, and management of various medical conditions. Understanding pharmacology helps in choosing the right drug, the appropriate dosage, and an effective administration method for patients. Pharmacology also studies drug interactions, side effects, and contraindications for drugs used in medical practice. Main topics of basic pharmacology. 1. Pharmacokinetics. Pharmacokinetics is the study of the movement of drugs in the human body, involving four main processes: absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. This process describes how drugs are absorbed, distributed, metabolized, and eliminated from the body. Absorption, the process by which a drug enters the bloodstream after being administered, usually through the gastrointestinal tract, oral, through the skin, topical, or by injection. Absorption is affected by factors such as the form of the drug, the size of the drug molecule, the pH of the gastrointestinal tract, and blood flow at the site of administration. Distribution. After being absorbed into the blood, drugs are distributed throughout the body, depending on the physiochemical properties of the drug and blood flow to various organs. Fat-soluble drugs tend to accumulate in fatty tissues, while water-soluble drugs are more concentrated in body fluids such as blood and urine. Metabolism, biotransformation, drug metabolism occurs mainly in the liver, where drugs are converted into forms that are more easily excreted. This process involves enzymes in the liver that convert drugs into active or inactive metabolites. Metabolism can affect the effectiveness of the drug and the duration of drug action. Excretion. Excretion is the process of removing drugs or their metabolites from the body, which is usually done by the kidneys through urine, but can also be done through feces, sweat, or breathing. The rate of excretion can affect the duration of drug action in the body. 2. Pharmacodynamics. Pharmacodynamics is the study of the mechanism of drug action at the molecular level and how drugs interact with receptors or other biological targets in the body to produce therapeutic or toxic effects. Drug mechanism of action. Drugs work by binding to specific receptors on cells or tissues in the body. These receptors can be proteins, enzymes, or ion channels. Once the drug binds to the receptor, a conformational change occurs, which alters the biological activity of the cell and affects physiological processes. Agonist. A drug that binds to and activates a receptor to produce a desired biological effect. Antagonist. A drug that binds to a receptor without activating it and prevents other agonists from binding to the receptor, thereby inhibiting the biological effect. Dose effect. The relationship between the dose of a drug administered and the body's response is the basis of drug therapy. The correct dose is needed to achieve the desired therapeutic effect without causing adverse side effects. Pharmacodynamics also studies concepts such as dose response, potency, efficacy, and therapeutic index. Side effects and toxicity. Drugs can cause side effects, which are unwanted responses of the body. These effects can be mild or serious. Toxicity occurs when a drug reaches too high a concentration in the body and causes damage to an organ or tissue. Understanding pharmacodynamics allows physicians to minimize side effects and choose the most appropriate drug for the patient. 3. Essential drugs. Essential drugs are drugs that are important and must be available in healthcare facilities to meet the health needs of the community. Some classes of drugs that fall into the category of essential drugs, which are often used in clinical practice, are antibiotics. Antibiotics are drugs used to treat infections caused by bacteria. They work by killing bacteria or inhibiting their growth. Some important groups of antibiotics that are often used include penicillins, cephalosporins, macrolides, and aminoglycosides. Examples: amoxicillin, penicillin antibiotic, chloramphenicol, broad-spectrum antibiotic, analgesics. Analgesics are drugs used to relieve pain. They can be divided into two categories: non-opioid analgesics, e.g., paracetamol and ibuprofen, and opioid analgesics, e.g., morphine and oxycodone. Examples: paracetamol, for mild to moderate pain, morphine, for severe pain, antipyretics. Drugs used to reduce fever. Some analgesics, such as paracetamol and ibuprofen, also have antipyretic effects. Antihypertensives, drugs used to lower high blood pressure, reduce the burden on the heart, and prevent long-term complications of hypertension. This group of drugs includes beta blockers, diuretics, ACE inhibitors, and angiotensin II receptor blockers, ARBs. Examples: amlodipine, calcium channel blocker, lisinopril, ACE inhibitor, antidiabetics, drugs used to control blood sugar levels in people with diabetes mellitus. These include insulin and oral medications such as metformin and sulfonylureas. Examples: metformin, for type 2 diabetes, insulin, for type 1 and type 2 diabetes, anticoagulants. A drug used to prevent blood clotting, such as warfarin or heparin. It is used to reduce the risk of thrombosis or embolism. Examples: heparin, direct anticoagulant, warfarin, oral anticoagulant. Conclusion: Basic pharmacology provides a foundation of knowledge about how drugs work in the body and how their effects can affect a patient's health. By studying pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, and essential drugs, medical students can understand how to select and administer safe and effective drug therapy for patients. This knowledge is also important for minimizing the risk of side effects and drug interactions, and for designing a treatment plan that is appropriate to the patient's medical condition. 7. Epidemiology and Public Health. Introduction to epidemiology, namely, epidemiology is the science that studies the distribution, patterns, and determinants of disease in human populations. This science aims to identify factors that influence public health and to design interventions that can prevent disease and improve overall health. Epidemiology is the basis for public health policy, medical research, and the management of health programs at both global and local levels. Main topics in epidemiology and public health. 1. Basic epidemiology. Basic epidemiology focuses on measuring the distribution and frequency of disease in a population and the factors that influence the disease. Some basic concepts in epidemiology that must be understood include incidence. Incidence is the number of new cases of a disease in a population at risk during a certain period of time. Incidence is used to measure the rate of disease occurrence in a population and provides an idea of the speed of disease spread. Example: if in 1 year there are 100 new cases of influenza in a village with 1,000 residents, then the incidence is 10% per year. Prevalence. Prevalence measures the total number of cases of a disease in a population at a certain point in time, both new and old cases. Prevalence indicates the burden of disease in society at a certain time. Example: if in a city with 5,000 people there are 250 cases of hypertension, then the prevalence is 5% of the total population. Disease determinants, risk factors. Disease determinants are factors that influence the occurrence of disease. These factors can be genetic, behavioral, environmental, and socioeconomic factors. Epidemiological studies aim to identify these risk factors and measure their impact on public health. Example: risk factors for heart disease include smoking, hypertension, unhealthy diet, and family history. 2. Environmental health. Environmental health studies how environmental factors affect human health. These factors include the quality of air, water, soil, climate, and living conditions. Environmental changes, both natural and caused by human activities, can affect the incidence of disease in a community. Air pollution. Exposure to air pollution, whether from motor vehicles, factories, or forest fires, can cause a variety of respiratory and cardiovascular diseases, including asthma, bronchitis, and heart disease. Clean water and sanitation. Lack of access to clean water and good sanitation can lead to waterborne diseases, such as diarrhea, cholera, and hepatitis A. Poor water quality can contribute to the spread of infections and reduce quality of life. Climate change. Global climate change can increase the frequency and intensity of natural disasters such as floods, droughts, and heat waves, which can affect public health. In addition, climate change also affects patterns of infectious diseases, such as dengue fever and malaria, which are influenced by changes in temperature and rainfall patterns. Housing and infrastructure. Crowded and unhealthy housing conditions can lead to the spread of infectious diseases, especially in poor communities. An unclean environment can worsen public health and increase the risk of spreading infectious diseases. 3. Disease prevention. Disease prevention is an effort to reduce the risk of disease or prevent the development of disease in individuals or communities. Prevention is divided into 3 levels, namely primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary prevention. Primary prevention aims to reduce risk factors or prevent disease before it occurs. Primary prevention interventions can include vaccination, health promotion, control of risk factors such as smoking and poor diet, and improving sanitation and hygiene conditions. Examples: vaccination to prevent infectious diseases, such as hepatitis B vaccine or MMR, measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, and smoking prevention campaigns. Secondary prevention. Secondary prevention aims to detect disease early before it becomes more serious. This includes screening or health checks to detect disease at an early stage, so that treatment can be started earlier to prevent complications. Examples: breast cancer screening with mammography, diabetes screening through blood sugar checks, and blood pressure checks to detect hypertension. Tertiary prevention. Tertiary prevention aims to prevent further damage and reduce the impact of disease in individuals who have already been diagnosed with the disease. The main goals of tertiary prevention are to improve quality of life and reduce long-term disability or complications. Example: rehabilitation for stroke patients to restore body function. Physical therapy for patients with spinal cord injuries, and chronic disease management programs such as diabetes and kidney failure. Conclusion. Epidemiology and public health play an important role in understanding patterns and determinants of disease in populations and designing strategies to improve public health. By studying epidemiology, medical students can better understand how disease spreads, how environmental factors affect health, and how disease prevention can be done at the individual and population levels. Effective prevention can reduce the burden of disease and improve the overall quality of life for communities.